Hello guys, welcome to the channel. This is Roll. In today's video, we'll be talking about the new 12 core relics that have been added to the Repentance patch for Janthir Wild. We will be discussing everything good and bad, comparing them with other relics that's kind of equal or they will take position, and where there will be timestamps, so feel free to jump to the relic you are interested in. Those relics are core, which mean if you have a legendary relic, they just add it to it. No need to unlock them prior like any new expansion relics, they are core. And if you are a core player or someone who doesn't have the legendary relic, you would need to craft them or buy them from other player or obtain them any other way. And since they are core, they're supposed not to be connected with any expansion, which mean any player, whether you have expansion or not, should be able to actually use them, according to my understanding. So without further ado, let's get right into it. And we will start with the most interesting to many people I have been asked about, which is Relic of Thorns. So for standard condition build, I usually, most player would run for PvE Relic of Aristocracy. This relic will give you 3% condition duration up to maximum of 5 stacks, which means 15%. The way to obtain it is by applying vulnerability or weakness on the enemy with internal cooldown of 1 second. So in only 5 seconds, you can have the maximum stack. So at the start of the fight, with like a couple of attacks enough to apply the vulnerability, you have it, it's consistent in any fight. From range, from melee, if you apply the vulnerability, you will get it, and it's persistent, and it is great. And if you're running something like our Untamed, as you can see, the Unleash attack have vulnerability on both Axe and on Dagger. The auto attack itself bought vulnerability on Dagger. And the Warhorn 4 bought a lot of vulnerability. And Jacaranda is a very special bit because vulnerability will count as if you did. So the Druid themselves can keep applying vulnerability, so you always have another source. It's just great. There is nothing to worry about. You will keep up the vulnerability easily. All that you need is about 5 seconds at the start of the fight. And that's why it's a standard to run Aristocracy with Trailblazer or Celestial, mostly Celestial, because it will get you to 80% condition duration. Run it with Trailblazer for the highest condition damage and duration combined in a rune. And I run Ferality and Malice. So Malice for extra condition duration and Ferality to not only use vulnerability from your skills, now you will keep applying every 2 second vulnerability to just have it constant, no matter what you do, even if a single auto attack, if you flank the enemy and in bosses, you don't need to flank or anything, just having a defense bar will trigger this every time. So it's great setup. Now comparing this to Thorns, the new relic. If you look into Thorn relic, you will find it give you 50 condition damage for maximum of 10 stacks, will last the stack for 30 seconds instead of 8, but the internal cooldown is 5. How do you get that? By being hit by an enemy that is poisoned. So you have to have your enemy poisoned, whether a poison you did or anyone else did, but it have to be hitting you once every 5 seconds in order to get this. So the minimum duration to get the maximum effect of it is 50 seconds. 50 comparing to 5. Yeah, think about that. That is a huge difference, and you spend a lot of time building this. So does the relic actually have more damage than Aristocracy, the standard choice? Well, technically yes, and I have finished the entire stack, like reached the 10 stacks and compared it to 5 stacks of Aristocracy. On the same build, didn't change anything or set up the build equal to it to just compare the damage, and actually you can see the numbers of skill does. And if you do the calculation also, it will give you, it almost equal like having, to my setups, like having 200 to 250 condition damage. The idea is you see how much condition damage you have and see how much those 500 condition damage that will be given by the stacks equal from as a percentage, and add to that percentage the increase from the duration added to it. And do the same thing for the Aristocracy. Take the duration and add to it how much increased condition damage add to it. And there was a difference to actually Relic of Thorns. And the numbers actually show that it have higher numbers. So does that mean I will be changing to it? Let's talk about the problems that this relic have. For a start, you take 50 seconds minimum just to have the final effect. Which means you need to keep getting hit. That means you need to have a bit that does not tank for you as ranger. If you play in another class like the King of Poison, Thief, or playing a Necro, just avoid minions and you will be hit. But that means every 5 seconds you need to take a hit. Not dodging, not avoiding the enemy, not playing from range. You need to take a hit every 5 seconds. If this just because you dodged or you run away or you healed or the enemy was CC'd or there's not enough enemies, if it increased to 6 seconds, 7 seconds, that means this number will increase. It now will go to 1 minute, 1 minute and 10 seconds, whatever, how much time you will take. Not only that, in open world, you kill enemies fast, and you don't keep moving from a fight to another immediately. And if you kill them fast enough, they don't hit you, and if you kill them slow enough, you're not always moving to another fight. You ride your mount and you do another thing or go to another event, so they will fall off in 30 seconds. Yes, 30 seconds is a big duration, but not big enough to always keep it constantly. And if it fall, now you need close to 1 minute to keep resetting this entire number. And in open world meta, like with Zergs and Commanders, mobs be CC'd and one-shotted from range, you never really take a hit and nothing really happens, so it becomes completely useless. It may be in solo that you can keep building this, but not in big fights. And again, even in solo champion or legendary, when you can take a lot of hits and the fight can be very long sometimes, depending on what boss you're fighting, champions take from like 2 minutes up to like 9 or something like that. That means you need to be taking hits from this champion. So again, your bit is not tanking for you. You will choose a damaging bit. You will play a lot about your survivability. It will become much less. You would need to kite and heal, so there's always this loss of a time, and that's another problem. Now, the last problem is the poison, but I don't really consider a problem. If you play in a condition build, most classes have enough coverage of poison, you don't even need to build in it. Let's talk about my Untamed, for example, which is the one I use for PvE in general. This hit alone give you more poison than its own duration. So the enemy is poisoned. In fact, the group of enemies you're fighting is poisoned. You almost don't need anything else in your build. And remember, in PvE, bits have a luck defense bar, so they cannot really be blinded or anything. They will always land their damage if you really make sure they teleport on the target, they're not far enough or something like that. However, your auto attack bot poison, this skill will make your bit bot poison. This one would bot poison and everything that it cleaved. So you'd never really worry about poison, you will always have it, it's not really a big deal. You can even use a bit directly for poison, for cleave with it or whatever if you want. But again, you will play on your survivability with a weaker bit when it comes to toughness, and you will take too long to build it. In open world meta or big events, it's completely useless. So where does it really shine? In a long encounter with not many phases, so that the effect of the relic fall. Like, I'm pretty sure there's some raids will work like that. So the enemies always have all the conditions and it would be hitting you, like there's always damage around you coming from the boss. And not really focus on a single target or something like that. So it will build up until the fight keep continue, and for the remaining of the fight, let's say you finish the raid in 7 minutes and something like that, for the 6 minutes after the one you filled it in, you will have this constant 500 points of condition damage. Combine that with 100 condition duration, it's like almost the value of 1000. It's really great in how it works. But other than that, it takes too much work, even so it's more. And if you compare it to aristocracy and the damage, you will only need like to take 5 stacks or something like that to get to the same damage. And for both of them, depending on your build, you don't even need to use virality. Maybe you can use something else and keep up the vulnerability otherwise with only your skills to even increase more. So you would go with something like bursting or whatever. So it's a good relic. You can run it in PvE. The only situation would you completely lose it is with events, not in solo playstyle. But I'm not gonna use it, and I don't think I should use it. This one is so easy. You give it to yourself. I mean, the aristocracy one, it's just great. It gives you enough damage, and it's good. So even if it is a bit weaker, it's way more reliable. Now for competitive style, it might be tempting because how much damage you can have from it actually. But condition players usually don't run a damage relic, because unlike power, when you want to end the fight faster and burst through people tankiness, as much as you can. So you could run something like that. For condition player, we run something more of a utility or something that would give you more cover condition, like more focused, like Relic of Akeem, Fractal, or Relic of Speed, as I run, but not really Relic for damage. So only like PvE player would run Relic of Aristocracy there. The Thorn is more tempting than Aristocracy, actually, because it gives you a condition damage. It's very direct. It's not about duration, so people can cleanse it. It increases your spike. And the damage is so high that if you keep it persistent within a fight, it will offer value. As long as you're a class that really takes some hits, like a Condition Reaper, like some Poison Rangers and stuff like that. So if you can keep the poison consistent on the enemy and you actually take hits, it can be useful because the fight's either way longer than 1 second, people keep cleansing, kiting and stuff, or very smaller, so you already have enough damage, you can burst someone down, because the condition, when you really lock down someone with a burst, you already have enough damage on them to take their health like twice over. So I can see some people running it, however, most of the time, like I said, it's not really about the damage, because either people cleanse your damage or you already like lock them down enough that you don't have a way out, so the spike is not that high. But it is actually more decent than Aristocracy as a concept, at least. But most condition player would run a utility style or something focused on the active spike of damage, like, say, Fractal or Akeem or whatever. Now let's talk about another very important relic, which is Relic of Vampirism. So Relic of Vampirism will give you life siphon damage and healing every time you use a healing skill, and it is on a 20-second cooldown. So if you heal around you, say radius of 360, 5 targets will be hit with this damage, and you will heal for this exact number that you can see. And it scales a little bit with power, so the damage can be increased like above 1k and something like that. However, the other side of it have no cooldown, which is on kill you heal by 10%. So if you kill like 5 mobs so fast, you will heal for 50%. If you kill another 5, it's another 50%. That's 100. It have no cooldown. It's crazy. You will keep like wrapping up your health, insane level of healing. So in open world, when you kill monsters so easy, it can be very good for sustain, especially for very glassy builds. If you play a build that's very glassy for fun of it, or you don't really want to do anything but damage, you're playing Staff Ellie or something like that, then this is crazy good for healing. However, there is other relics that are really good for survivability in general, like Relic of Zakros, the one we use for our power build, the Norse, or I can't really pronounce its name. This one, which give you a transformation of your damage by percentage of 15% into healing and even lower the damage and do great things. It will give you the stacks every 30 seconds. Unless you're corrupting boon, it can be shorter. And there's also Zakros with healing as long as you have Fury with a percentage of your healing. So there's other relics, but this one will be good for the classes. It's very glassy. You don't really want to be slowly healing yourself up or tanking any sort of damage. It can be good when you're moving fast across the world, and even in meta events when you keep killing mobs all around you so fast. So I could find some people use it for survivability purposes. It's kind of decent. And also, even if you just heal around you and there is a lot of mobs, this life siphon heal will be up to 5 targets. So you can heal for some significant numbers. It's like an extra healing skill, or at least a small extra healing skill. So I would see some people actually using this thing and actually loving it. For competitive play, I don't think it's that useful. The little bit of increased healing and the siphon life and damage is not optimal. It's very low, like it's not really making a difference. And on kill, when you use that, like in Zergs, well, if you're killing people and keep healing from it like that, you're already doing good and your healer is carrying you and your Zerg is winning. And if you're not, then it will not work. So the only reliable use for it is very glassy builds for survivability in open world. Now, Relic of Altruism. This one is different between competitive and open world. So for PvE, it gives you 10 seconds of Fury and Might and 8 stacks of Might actually on an internal cooldown of 20 seconds. You will give yourself and the allies around you up to 5 targets in a radius of 360 those points. In competitive modes, it's actually 8 seconds for 6 stacks of Might, not 8, and you will give 5 seconds of Fury on the same cooldown and everything. So when does a relic like that is actually good? It's for support builds, for example, that struggle with Fury. So there's this idea of always another one will bring Fury, like more than one person can actually give it through traits, stuff like that, and even other people can dish out might and stuff. So if you use this relic, you will be able to cover up a huge part of it. Remember, if with boon duration up to 100%, that means it's 20 seconds of might and 20 seconds of fury on 20-second cooldown. So there is a very minimum time between using it. But also remember, relics cooldown does not change with alacrity, which means when you have alacrity and your healing skill cooldown is less than 20 seconds, you can't use it immediately off cooldown or you will not be triggering the relic. As you can see here, I'm running the relic and I use it. And I use it again, but since I have alacrity, the cooldown did not pass. And that's for any relic to pay attention on that, whether it's for healing or for elite skill, it does not affect by alacrity. So where do I see use for this? Like I said, for support player and stuff. You can run in combative also for preset and giving yourself a boost from the start of the fight for might and fury from the first engagement. Like Mesmers used to run this mantra to give them might and stuff. And you can also in small groups have it to give other people support, like the same idea in the PvE. And you can also use it with as a preset. If you know, ArenaNet have made it, if you change your build, whatever boons you have will not actually be transferred except swiftness. So, for example, if we give ourselves might from Intrancesty Avatar and we change our build, everything is gone. But if you change only your equipment, that doesn't happen. And that's how people use it into changing resets. So I'll change equipment, and as you can see, I still have everything, even so I changed it, but I didn't change the build itself. So there is multiple uses for it. It's good to give you a little bit of like a few resources for yourself if you want, and also a way to preset your fights on another template to cheese things. Like it have use. It's a good relic. It also compete with Midnight King. So Midnight King was internal cooldown of 1 second only. Every time you disable, you will give for 300 radius 5 allies, might and fury. The same thing. 3 stacks only for lower duration, but only with 1 second. So if you have multiple CCs, you will keep getting those higher. And with boon duration, these numbers can really build up. So depending on your build, on your situation, whatever you want to do, this or this can be usable. It's like it's a core version of this expansion version of kind of the same concept. And talking about boons, that take me to one of the most exciting relics in my opinion. I find it very, very good. Is actually Relic of Earth. So Relic of Earth used to be a rune, but it would give you only its effect. Now it will give you and allies around you. For 360 radius, up to 5 allies. On a 30-second cooldown, every time you use an elite skill, you will give protection and magnetic aura. 6 seconds of protection and 4 seconds of magnetic aura. So, if the enemy hits you in melee, you reduce their damage by 33%, and if you're in Tempest, maybe it's 40%, and you get magnetic aura, so the projectile will be reflected from you and the allies who got the effect. This is very good defensively, especially with elite skills that doesn't really lock the enemy, so you don't use them into bursting someone, use them more into kiting, or the enemy at least still can react to you. So something like Entangle, something like Strength of the Back. When the enemy is not under your control, it can still be dishing damage, you're trying to dish damage, or you're trying to kite for the stability and swiftness or whatever. Now you have projectile reflection, and have protection. And if you also running condition ranger, you can heal from protection, so it's also turned to a healing skill kind. So I find it very, very useful, especially in small scale and competitive, for example, when you give it to your party and you all moving need to kite, change position and stuff like that. And even in PvE, when you want some tanky build or want the protection to keep a permanent protection, especially with boon duration, this can go up to 12. And if you can copy boons like Ranger from your bit, it's increased significantly. So if you feel in your build you need the protection, it's a good source. If you need to deal with projectile like in specific dungeon or whatever, you can simply use it, or even multiple players use it in sequence to give themselves magnetic aura while moving around and reflecting all the projectile coming to them. So it's very unique. It's very good for survivability. It's one of probably the tankiest relic if you want for survivability in combative. It's not about healing, it's about the utility side. It also compete with Relic of Sorrow, for example. This relic when use an elite skill on the same cooldown, but for a small radius 240 for 4 seconds, you will create a dome kind of area that will destroy projectile and will heal the allies in it and will reduce the incoming damage. So in melee you reduce damage, but for a smaller number, it's 20, and will heal for a number that actually responsive to healing power, so it can increase a bit. But it's stationary. That's why a lot of people like to use it in Zergs. You would see people use it sometimes. I even use it sometimes because it will stop projectile like any kind of defense. So you'd give it to player who don't even have a way to do that, and it will just work. With the healing, with stuff, it's very useful. So this is more suitable for Zergs and big groups when you need to move in a specific area, when you can tank all this and help each other. And the other one is more for a smaller side, and in solo is actually better. That's why I think it's a very good relic if you want to use it or find a use for it in your build anyway. And it's better than some of the relics that used to be good, like Relic of the Wither Tower, for example, which will give you a reflecting missile for 4 seconds, but in combative, I think it's like 1. So it was really not that great and will ball people around you from that radius. So no protection, nothing, it's only for projectiles, and it will give you a minor CC. So it was a good choice, but now I don't think it competes with the Relic of Earth at all. Especially that this also include you only, while the other even will give it to allies. So does Relic of the Severite will gonna keep bolzing protection and resolution with a maximum duration of 7 seconds. It can be increased with bone duration, which means it can reach up to like 14 seconds or something. So it's decent, but again, no reflect. It's have different circumstance. I think Relic of Earth is better. And lastly, also Relic of Durability would give you protection, regeneration, and resolution when you use a healing skill. But it also, for you only, it's lower. It's in 15-second cooldown, so you will get it more useful. A maximum of 8 seconds. I still think the other one is better, unless you really build them boons through healing. So maybe if you want something like that for PvE or whatever, Relic of Durability is still kinda good, but I find Relic of Earth is very good option when you think about those choices. And Relic of Durability is good enough because it will deal with anything and will heal you with regeneration. Even if you're a ranger, now you heal him from 2 sources. So this could work, depending on what you want to do. But Relic of Earth is more potent when it comes to combative because of the reflect is very strong, obviously. And talking about relics that give aura, that take us to Relic of Surging, which also again the same in combative as in PvE. It's 30-second cooldown, also on the elite skill, and it will give you 4 seconds of shocking aura this time. A lot of people used to use it early when it was on the rune to help lock the enemy more with if you hit them, now you get CC'd, so they build up multiple CC on each other, and it's very good because it can interrupt multiple enemies, especially in outnumber situation. They hit you, they get stunned while you're trying to kite or whatever. So it's very decent, especially again with elite skills that doesn't already lock the enemy completely, like Chill to the Bone or the Engineer Beam of the Holosmith, stuff like that. So any elite that doesn't do that, it will give you even more of a breathing room. And it's an aura, even like the Earth one, so it works very well with something like Elementalist. You can build into things like that. So I see use for it in combative. Obviously, it have no use whatsoever in PvE. It's absolutely not a choice for PvE. There's no point in it, no damage, and it's not really a CC you want it to count on for interrupting a defense bar or whatever. You need to run other CCs, there's other ways, and there's other relics even for CC itself, like the tower, which we mentioned like a moment ago. So it's only for competitive, and it have some good uses if people want to use it. And last one talking about aura is actually the Relic of the Fire, which on a 20-second cooldown on healing this time, not actually on elite skill, will give you fire aura, and whenever you're under the effect of fire aura, you will increase your outgoing damage by 7% in PvE and 10% in competitive modes. This obviously for classes that don't have fire aura generation or multiple generation is useless, so it can only shine with an elementalist, a berserker, maybe a gimmicky build of an engineer or something, but other than that, no. However, it also competes with relics that offer consistent, more reliable damage increase, like Relic of the Thief, Relic of the Firework, stuff like that. And 7%, especially in PvE, is quite low, so maybe some elementalists would run it in competitive mode for the 10% and they can run Fire Aura reliably, but Other than that, I don't see an actual use for it, and for most players that only want the relic for damage, it's completely useless while there is other choices out there good. So if you can make a use of Fire Aura and keep it constant, especially in competitive and you want that extra 10% damage, why not? You can run it, and even it's extra aura, which on the healing skill, which mean it's extra effectiveness if you get any value of the aura, like an elementalist or a berserker, for example. And speaking on damage, that takes us to Relic of the Eagle. So this relic will give you 10% increased damage, nothing you need to do, but the enemy have to be less than 50% health. So for the first half of the fight, it do nothing, and the second half it give you the highest amount of, or one of the highest amount of damage increase. So this relic only use is probably in competitive when you play in a build that grinds the enemy down and spikes them dead. Like if your health is low, you're dead. It's as simple as that. So something like the Daredevil, especially when they use the elite of the Daredevils, the ones that finish you, or when you really manage your burst on time it, like with the Dagger Thief, like with Dead Eye, with Soul Beast, when they don't really need the spike from the start, but then they can really burn you down. So I see some people might think it's a good choice, but again, it competes with 6 or 7% from other relics that's way more reliable and way more constant. In PvE, however, you can't play while half the fight you lose this damage and half the other fight you have high. If you have a relic that will give you constant 5%, it's the same damage. And the most relic will give you 6 to 7. And there is even some relic give you, but in specific circumstance will give you 15, like the one would create an area after your elite skill. So this one might see use in competitive if people want to play around with it, but I don't think it's actually like really worth considering for an extra 3% or 4% while after the 50% health. And lastly, Relic of the Holo, which will give you a laser disc of the Holo in a melee radius 180 for 3 seconds, all balls 6 pulses, so 2 pulses a second every half a second. On a 30-second cooldown after using elite skill. It will create the disc around you, would do power damage and condition damage. Just like that. So this one is more of a power damage thing because I'm in a full condition build here, and as you can see, it's 3000 and a little. You can get it up to 4000 depending on how your condition is going, like the duration and the condition damage, and 4 you can get it a little bit higher than that. However, if you do it with a power build, you will see the number increased, well, the power significantly. It's 3000 now. And it's different from World vs. World than competitive. Like those 3000 in competitive is actually like 1k and a half. I think it's might some people actually want to use it in like Zergs when you try to bomb enemies and put more damage into it, but comparing to any relics that increase your damage or doing extra hits like Storm Singer or whatever this relic Storm is named, or ones that increase your damage or give you extra hits or even give defenses, this little bit of few extra hits does not make this much difference. So I don't think this relic will be used in any way with this low damage, especially that's nerfed in competitive. And in PvE, it's absolutely worthless comparing to relics that increase damage. It's like, yeah, you can hit for like 6k or whatever. It's nothing. It's a single auto attack in PvE. It's absolutely nothing. And lastly, that takes us to the relics of the summoning that people wanted for the roleplay. And they are the Relic of the Golemancer, the one that summons the Golem, and the one that summons the Parrot, and the Rock Dog, and the Jackdaw. They all have a 60-second cooldown, while the summon itself lasts for 60 seconds. So once it ends, another will spawn. Unless it's killed before the cooldown run out, you will have to still wait for 60 seconds. In competitive mode, in 120. And those things, I don't say are reliable or you can use them for damage whatsoever. They're more for roleplay and if you want more minions and the CC of the Golemancer, for example. And even if they had high damage, I think Alienate would nerf them. They don't want something like this to be reliable or usable or part of a meta at all. That's it for the video. We went through all the relics. Ask anything if you want to in the comment. Put your own points and theories and tests if you want to tell me about it. And I will be engaging with you in the comments. That's it for the video, and I will be seeing you next time. Peace.